You're watching TAG TV. You're watching TAG TV.
Indian security forces eliminate several Pakistan-backed terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. India's Home Minister, Army Chief warned Pakistan of consequences of cross-border terrorism. Terrorism remains the single largest threat to peace and stability in the South Asian region, says Sushma Swaraj. Country report on terrorism exposes Pakistan terror plots against India, Afghanistan. Pakistan-sponsored terrorists failed to execute attacks in Jammu and Kashmir, wherein they had planned to attack several high-level targets, such as the State Assembly building as well as the security installations. The Indian security forces have been able to stop these attacks and eliminated several terrorists, including the top ones. We have a report.
As many as 3 encounters broke out on September 27th. The firefight first began in Budgam district of Jammu and Kashmir, where 3 terrorists were trapped inside a building. Masked ground workers of terror outfits pelted stones at the security personnel to stop the encounter. However, the security forces successfully completed the operation. A special police officer was too killed during the encounter. It was followed by another encounter when security forces launched a search operation after receiving specific inputs about the presence of terrorists in Nurbag region of Srinagar city. Internet services were temporarily suspended in the region. The terrorists wanted to attack the assembly building, but they were stopped before they could enter in the building. The third encounter broke out in Anandnag district of the restive state.
Unless and until sanctions are imposed against Pakistan, Pakistan is not going to learn and Pakistan is not going to improve. So this step must be taken. All the countries in the world should be told and should be made to understand that Pakistan is a nation which harbors terrorism, and not only harbors terrorism, it trains them, sends them across all countries and ensures that terrorism thrives in the world.
Indian security forces had a major breakthrough in the fight against terrorism in the valley in the Bandipora district of the state, where as many as 5 militants were gunned down after 2 days of gun battle. Loads of arms and ammunition were also recovered from the dead terrorists. The security forces launched a search operation after receiving specific inputs about the presence of militants in the Shok Babab forest area in Bandipora district, during which the hiding terrorists opened fire.
A speculative search operation was launched in Shok Baba forest of Bandipora, where suspected movement was noticed. After that, the next 2 days, a large-scale operation by the Army, Jammu Kashmir Police and the CRPF was launched. And that grave risk to our security forces, over a period of 2 days, we were finally able to eliminate 5 unidentified terrorists, and a lot of warlike stores were recovered from them.
In recent times, amid substantial loss, terrorists have been trying hard to stop locals from joining police forces. Kidnapping and killings of persons belonging to police and security forces is a way to scare the locals away from forces. In one such instance, terrorists backed by Pakistan raided, abducted and mercilessly killed 3 policemen in Shopian district. The bodies were recovered from an orchard located around 1 kilometer from the deceased village.
वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट इंसिडेंट आज का जो हमारे 2 SPOs और एक पुलिस कांस्टेबल को शहीद किया गया है. दिस इज एन एक्ट ऑफ डेस्परेशन ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ मिलिटेंट आउटफिट्स.
The victims have been identified as Constable Nisar Ahmed and 2 special police officers, Firdoz Ahmed and Kulwan Singh. Security forces soon carried out a cordon and search operation in at least 10 villages across the state to nab the perpetrators of the heinous crimes. Security forces held door-to-door searches in Lasipora, Armula, Alayapura, Batnur, Garbuk and many other areas of the district.
United Nations, it declares Pakistan as a terror country and sanctions are imposed. Unless and until these strong steps are taken, Pakistan is not going to understand a lesson. Pakistan needs to be taught a big lesson in the harder way.
There has been a spate in attacks on security forces in Kashmir. In August, a policeman was shot dead by militants in Kulgam district when he was leaving after offering prayers. A soldier who was returning home to celebrate Eid was abducted and killed by Pakistani terrorists in Pulwama district in June.
Rajnath Singh, the Indian Home Minister, and General Bipin Rawat, the Indian Army Chief, issued strong statements against Pakistan this week to mend ways or to be prepared for the consequences. We have a report.
The Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, which has been a victim of Pakistan's malicious designs and plots for nearly 29 years, have been defended bravely by the Indian security forces who are active in the region. The Home Minister Rajnath Singh said the government is ready for talks with everyone over the Kashmir issue while asserting that terrorism in the valley is Pakistan-sponsored. In a meeting in India's Lucknow city, Rajnath Singh said,
पहले भी मैंने कहा है कि वहां जो भी बात करना चाहता है सभी के साथ हम लोग बात करने को तैयार हैं, पहले भी कहा है। और उसके अतिरिक्त जहां तक आतंकवादी गतिविधियों का प्रश्न है, हमारी आर्मी, हमारी पैरामिलिट्री फोर्सेज जिन्हें सीएपीएफ कहते हैं, सेंट्रल आर्म पुलिस फोर्स और जम्मू कश्मीर पुलिस, इन तीनों के बीच म्यूचुअल कोऑर्डिनेशन बहुत ही अच्छा है और वो अपना काम कर रही है। और मैं यह भी कहना चाहूंगा, जो भी टेररिज्म है कश्मीर का, तो पूरी तरह से पाकिस्तान स्पॉन्सर्ड है, ये कहने में मुझे रंज मात्र संकोच नहीं है।
Terror groups backed by the Pakistan Army have set up new launching pads along the line of control in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir region. According to intelligence sources, as many as 250 terrorists are waiting across the border to infiltrate into India. Among the 8 new launch pads are those in Lipa Valley, one of the 2 strategic locations that were destroyed by the Indian Army during the surgical strikes that took place in September 2016. Indian intel had earlier come to the conclusion that camps hit by the surgical strikes were again becoming active. Of the 27 launch pads operated by terrorists, Lashkar-e-Toiba is concentrated in Lipa, Chakhoti, Barakot, Shardi, while the Hizbul Mujahideen has had camps set up in the forward Kathua area of POK. In view of the current situation in Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian Army Chief General Bipin Rawat expressed a need to conduct another surgical strike across the LOC.
The Parakaram Parv falls on the 29th of September. It is also one such victory, like the Hafa victory, which our troops were very successfully able to achieve. The task that they had set out on was carried out in a very successful manner. We had attempted to destroy and eliminate some of those terrorists who were waiting across the line of control to carry out violence and bloodshed in our territory. And that was the aim of that operation. This operation was more of a message to the adversary that should they continue with such kind of operations, the Indian Army and the Indian Defence Forces have the capability to operate in such a manner even in the future.
This statement comes on the eve of the second year of India's surgical strike, which triggered the imagination of the people, instilling a sense of pride in a nation. India and Indians have silently suffered the consequences of Pakistan's proxy war for nearly 4 decades as it continues to successfully wage a low-cost, high-effect war with impunity, resorting to their rhetoric nuclear weapons.
India's External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, who is set to speak at the United Nations General Assembly on the 29th of September, also addressed the world on the growing menace of terrorism and the support it gets from neighbouring Pakistan. Newsweek South Asia has a report.
The build-up to India's External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj's speech at the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly has started. Ahead of the EAM address, Sushma Swaraj addressed a meeting of the SAARC nations, which was also attended by her Pakistani counterpart, Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Swaraj attacked Pakistan as she said, the scourge of terrorism remains the single largest threat to peace and stability in the South Asian region, and it is necessary to eliminate the ecosystem of its support. She further said, an environment of peace and security is essential for regional cooperation to progress and achieve economic development and prosperity of our people. The number of threats and incidents that endanger South Asia are on the rise.
Our world is still beset with conflicts, terror and hateful ideologies that are transcending borders and impacting our lives. No one should be allowed to support terror or its perpetration.
EAM Swaraj is busy meeting world leaders at the Peace Summit, where she is promoting the idea of conflicts, terror and hateful ideologies that are transcending borders. India has been at the forefront of the United Nations to call for an end to terrorism and especially to prevent member nations from supporting terror and terrorist organizations as a tool of foreign policy.
Terror is a perennial threat. Terror will be addressed in strong terms in multiple fora. This is a goal that we have been pursuing since 1996, when India introduced a draft of the CCIT, which is the Global Convention to Combat Terror. Since then, the resonance has only increased. Yet, there are some who do not want to, for their own reasons, support such initiatives.
India's ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations, Syed Akbaruddin, has pitched the idea of identifying terror as a perennial threat and that shall be addressed in strong terms in multiple forums. Without taking any names, Akbaruddin, in a veiled reference to Pakistan, vouched for the isolation of the countries that do not participate in combating the perennial threat.
Increasingly, such countries are being isolated globally. Our hope is that this process of isolation of such countries will continue to be strengthened.
Joined by the US, Britain and France in recent years, India has been trying to persuade a committee appointed by the United Nations Security Council to designate Masood Azhar, the head of Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed, as a global terrorist to prevent him travelling abroad and to force member nations to freeze his assets and deny him access to weapons. Batting for Pakistan, where elements support and fund the Jaish-e-Mohammed, China has repeatedly blocked these efforts. Akbaruddin explained that some countries that did not want to engage in initiatives of combating terrorism because of their own personal reasons would soon be isolated globally. He further said that India will articulate its views at the United Nations General Assembly with broad support from everyone.
Diplomacy is all about articulating your view in a very coherent manner. We are confident we will articulate our view very coherently with broad support from everyone. It is not about making noises. Noises cannot be a substitute for diplomatic action. Our focus is on diplomatic action.
Akbaruddin even assured that the Indian side was very much ready to tackle the Kashmir issue if neighbouring Pakistan chooses to raise the issue at the high-level session, terming it as Pakistan's one-trick pony act. Like every year, Pakistan raised the Kashmir issue and presented an ocean of lies to give India a bad image. Earlier, Akbaruddin stated that the UN works best on multilateralism and single acts have no renaissance in such matters. Sushma Swaraj is expected to give her speech at the United Nations General Assembly on September 29th.
The government of United States acknowledged the fact that Pakistan-based terror groups are the reason for the terror activity in India. The Donald Trump-led administration, which published the report, also went on to praise the Indian administration in checking the menace created by Pakistan. Newsweek South Asia has a report.
The annual country report on terrorism published by the United States government as mandated by the US Congress and the State Department said the Indian leadership, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, expressed resolve to prevent terrorist attacks domestically and to bring justice to the perpetrators of terrorism with the US and other like-minded countries. The report mentions the parts of India which have seriously been impacted by terrorists and includes the state of Jammu and Kashmir and some other parts. The report acknowledges the fact that most of the cross-border attacks in the state of Jammu and Kashmir are because of Pakistan.
Look, these reports have been coming out for quite some time now. For a long time now, the United States has recognized the fact that Pakistan is fomenting terrorism. And it's not just this government, even the previous government, the previous US administration, which was headed by Barack Obama, the term that Hillary Clinton used for Pakistan was the world's international headache. So Pakistan's role in fomenting terrorism is known to all. The question is, what is the United States willing to do about it, number one, and how much, to what extent is the United States willing to support India in her efforts to curb terrorism? Otherwise, the facts regarding Pakistan, what it does to terrorism, is known to everybody. It is not acknowledged immediately, but after some time, whatever we say today becomes part of all established documents tomorrow. So this is not very surprising.
The report mentions India's enthusiasm and commitment to finish terrorism from its soil and helping in countering the menace in the world. The report says India sought to deepen counter-terrorism cooperation and information sharing with the US, including through the first ever designation dialogue held in Delhi in December. Last year, India and the US had pledged to strengthen cooperation against terrorist threats from the groups including Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba and the D Company.
The fact is, the United States has reduced aid to Pakistan considerably. When it comes to declaring Pakistan a terrorist nation, then you have to do certain things which you have, and you have to carry this action through. It is my guess that the United States is not yet prepared to do what it takes to Pakistan if Pakistan is declared a terrorist nation. But my argument is, even without declaring Pakistan as a terrorist nation, in cooperation with India, in cooperation with the Republic of Afghanistan, the three countries together can do quite a lot.
The report also cited an example of a significant counter-terrorism law enforcement action by India. It said the police arrested Jamaat-ud-Mujahideen Bangladesh leader Mohammad Idris from a hideout in Kolkata on March 8. Idris was allegedly involved in the July 2016 Holy Artisan Bakery attack in Bangladesh capital Dhaka.
It is heartening to know that India's efforts in curbing terrorism have been praised. But what is important is basically to develop a longer term strategy. India and the United States have to come together in a structured manner and plan joint operations. Now, these joint operations need not necessarily be armed operations that violate Pakistan's sovereignty.
For years now, both India and the United States NATO forces stationed in Afghanistan suffer due to Pakistan's continuous ploys of causing troubles to both its neighbors. In Afghanistan, the state is witnessing continuous bomb blasts and terrorist attacks because of the terror organizations like the Haqqani Network, Taliban and the Islamic States, which has its territory and base in Pakistan. On the other hand, terrorists responsible for the attacks in Mumbai in 1993 and 2008 live freely in Karachi and Lahore in their lavish bungalows. Pakistan also continues to support and sponsor infiltration on the Indian soil to carry out terror activities.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We will be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@ani.com. This is Surbhi Sharma signing off on the behalf of entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.